Om Bhuvasvaha Tatsavitovarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. So we started on chapter 6 last time, and we understood that the Bhairang sadhana, which is the external sadhana to attain Dhyan Yoga, is Karma Yoga. And then we understood that Karma Yoga, because of its necessity to renounce the action, renounce the fruit of the action, it qualifies in a similar way as renouncing action in case of sannyasa. And in a sense, therefore, it has been given the rank of being a sannyasi. Right, sir? So, he who is performing asakti rahit karma, he is not only a sannyasi but also a yogi, because as a yogi he can perform action. Yoga is action, and that action, which is asakti rahit action, without the desire for the outcome, that action makes asakti rahit karma as sannyas as well as a yoga. So he becomes a sannyasi and a yogi. And therefore, what we have been reading from chapter 2 about asakti rahit karma has been now finally taken to a stage where it is equated to sannyas. Okay. And then he takes on the aspect of how this asakti rahit karma becomes a necessary part or a necessary step to attaining dhyan. Okay. So he talks about in shloka number 4 that if you can effortlessly, or in shloka number 3, as a person becomes less and less desirous of fruits of actions, he is slowly able to effortlessly control his senses and his mind becomes peaceful, which is the basic minimum requirement for a person to start on Dhyan Yoga. Right? So that process by which he is slowly and steadily becoming, his mind is becoming peaceful, that leads to the starting of Dhyan Yoga. And then it is said in shloka number 4, he obtains peace in his mind, then the senses which are connected to the objects and performing these daily nitya karma, naimittik, which is prescribed karma, desirable, which is kamya karma, and which are nishid karmas, which are prohibited karmas, he realizes that he has no purpose in performing them for himself. It will be a good idea if you can come in front, Rahul, and yeah, please come in front. There are some 3-4 spaces going. And therefore, he does not think, I should do this. मेरे को ये कर्म करना आवश्यक है, इस प्रकार से वो नहीं सोचता. And then as he slowly has the habit of renouncing all desires for outcomes, he also starts renouncing those thoughts which lead to the desire. Okay? And that renouncing of thoughts over a period of time also leads to renouncing of action. Because in karma sannyas, renouncing of action is prescribed. which subsequently leads to asakti rahit karma also. If there is no karma, then there is no attachment to the outcome either. Here, the process that through the process of not attaching yourself to the outcome, you slowly understand that there is really no purpose in performing those actions, and your thought does not stray that I should go and do this and perform this action. So, in a sense, you start becoming a karm sannyasi as well. This is what we read till shlok number 4. Any questions? Any confusions? Any questions? Anything you want to add? Any thought, any example you want to take? Anything? Any experiences? Anything? So once we've understood that karma yoga, asakti rahit karma, is critical, and we have understood that this helps us to do the dhyan yoga, then what should we really do in terms of progressing further to be able to do dhyan yoga? Okay, so we'll read that from shloka number 5. If somebody can read, it'll be nice in a loud, clear voice.
Lying immersed in the worldly ocean, we should lift ourselves high through our determination, meaning we should attain the established state of dhyana. We should not allow our jivatam,
Jivatma,
jivata, jivatma
Jivatma,
to fall down. Because it is its own well-wisher or friend, there is none other who can liberate one from this world. Love,
so
etc.
we'll just hold here. So we are immersed in this ocean of this worldly action, vyavarik jagat, and through our determination only we can lift ourselves above the daily interactions, daily व्यवहार जो रोजाना के हमारे काम कर्तव्य सब होते हैं, उसमें से निकलने के लिए केवल हमारी इच्छा, हमारा डिटर्मिनेशन जो है वो आवश्यक है. और उसको यदि हम ध्यान की तरफ लगाएंगे तो धीरे धीरे ध्यान हमारे में उत्पन्न होगा और हमें इस जीवात्मा, जिस ये जो जीव आत्मा, ये जो इग्नोरेंट आत्मा, इग्नोरेंट इनर सेल्फ है, उसको नीचे नहीं गिरना चाहिए. उसको ऊपर की तरफ जाने का अर्थ है कि हम उसको वो समझ की तरफ ले जाएं जहां उसको मोक्ष की प्राप्ति उपलब्ध हो. नीचे गिरने का मतलब है कि हम वही चीजों में घुसे रहें जो कि एक भव्य संसार सागर है, और दूसरा हम उसमें से निकल के बाहर निकलने का प्रयत्न करें. यदि वो डिटर्मिनेशन होगा तो हम ध्यान में जा सकते हैं. अब इसका कौन साथी है, इसके लिए आपको कौन सपोर्ट कर सकता है? You yourself have to support yourself. So that is what is being said. There is no well-wisher or friend who can do it. Okay. So let us understand that from the next sentence onwards, and we'll expand on this a little later.
So since you are now wanting to go into dhyan, isn't that also a desire?
Yeah.
So when a desire is created and again
So-
you are waiting for the result.
Yeah. So when you reach a particular stage in asakti rahit karma, okay, when your mind is peaceful, then you are anyway steadily moving into dhyana alone. So that is one approach where you're steadily moving without having too much of a desire or a significant desire. Okay. Second aspect, or the second way in which we see it happen, is that people tell you do this meditation. When you do this meditation, you will realize peace. You'll get calm. You'll have peace. Okay. Now, then it becomes a process in which initially there is a huge desire. But slowly, as you actually settle down into peace, then you are moving into that state by itself. The desireless state of really looking for something. Okay. Both ways it can work. But what is being suggested is the way of karma. Because by going the other way around, your mind will wander, mind will not be able to steady itself because there is no abhyas, there is no practice which is supporting it. Because as soon as you step out of the dhyan yoga, you are going to be absorbed in the nature of things as they appear in our vyavarik jagat, in our normal day-to-day tendencies. Please read ahead.
Love feelings are also
Love,
cause of
etc.
bondage.
feelings.
Yeah, etc. Feelings are also cause of bondage. Hence, friends in the world too are also opposers to the path of liberation.
So
Hence,
what
it is
happens when we have friends, people who are acting as friends, who are your well-wishers, who love you? All those people are trying to help you, but essentially they may also lead to an attachment between them and yourselves, and therefore they can become a hindrance to your progress. So they may not remain as friends; they may turn out to be foes. Yeah,
So, some friends or relatives can actually help you go down the correct path.
yeah, up to a point. Up to a point. After that, it is all your internal effort.
No, I know, but it says that they are opposing to path of liberation.
Sorry. It'll
They
lead
say
to
the
opposing.
friends are also opposers to the path of liberation.
Yeah.
So if I take my example, I have a school friend and known him for more than 60 years. He's a doctor. Over the last 20 years, he's in path and he's been telling me for decades that, this is the path you need to go down. I didn't listen to him. I started listening to him 6 months ago. But how can this example, he can be opposer to the path of liberation and he's trying to show me the path of liberation.
Yeah. So it is being said here are also opposers to the path of liberation means that eventually they turn out to be opposers because you develop an attachment to them. That is all. There is no other mechanism. Okay.
The word bondage is used also.
Yeah.
They are kind of bondage.
Yeah. Because they also cause that bondage that I start depending on them or I start leaning on them or I have a strong bond. So if that person goes away, then I go into a loop. अब वो जो है इतना अच्छा व्यक्ति था वो ही इस प्रकार से चला गया तो अब मेरा क्या होगा इस तरह की बुद्धि उत्पन्न होने की संभावना है इट्स नॉट नेसेसरी
So, let's say a guru and chela, where guru is trying to show the path, they can also have that kind of a bondage.
correct so what does the guru do he does not allow that bondage to come up in that particular way and you see those people who actually go like for example when Chinmayananji went okay so he gave his time, he did what he had to do, and he said, yes, I am going. And people who were his disciples understood that this is just the body form which is moving on.
See, before I started coming here, I was reading this. Swami Vivekananda died very young. I think he was 39 or something. So he had no time to write about himself. So his disciples collected everything and created a kind of a biography. So the relationship that I see that Ramakrishna Param, he went out seeking and spending time with him and showering affection on Vivekananda, but he was the one who was showing him the path as well. So how can all relationship be opposite to this?
This relationships of the Vyavarik world is being talked about. Okay, so we look at the relationship between Swami Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. It's a very different one, and we've seen episodes right from the moment Vivekananda recognizes that Ramakrishna is the Guru, and Vivekananda gets liberated, and then obviously Ramakrishna knows that he is the same, and he knows he is the same. Both know each other very well. In that sense, then there is no issue about this sort of bondage arising. Okay, there is no issue of bondage arising once you know. Once you yourself know that there is just a body which is transitioning itself, then where is the bondage? Even in our own case, it is only when we have superimposed this body on the Atma and we have an attachment created with that body so hugely that we treat it as a huge loss. How will I live the next moment next year without my whatever friend, spouse? Okay, then that attachment leads to that loss which we talk about. So it is not just okay, we'll read because it's all given here and we'll come to each of those things as we read that.
Hence, it is correct to say with confirmation that you are your own friend. And
You are your own friend
enemy.
also, because this aspect of moving into dhyan, okay, and having that peace is all an internal activity. Okay, so nobody externally can see, nobody externally can really understand, other than those people who are gurus or who are advanced in the path.
So we are somewhere getting away from the society.
If we are performing action, then we are not getting away from society. However, if we are performing action without having an attachment to the outcome, in a sense, we are not following the behavioral norms of the society. Because this activity of not having ichha in the outcome is an internal aspect. It can be understood by a few people who understand this subject, that this person possibly is walking this path of asakti rahit karma. But outside, rest of the people will not know. Yeah, they are going to treat you as a normal person who is performing actions. Who knows that I have an attachment to the outcome in this particular action? Only I know. What is the depth of that attachment? Only I know. What is the significance it carries for me? Only I know. What is the subtleness of that attachment? Only I know. Okay, so there are words like craving, okay, which denote an extreme, okay, and there could be something else. Hope, mild expectation. Okay, so there is a good spectrum of thoughts, feelings which you may be carrying towards that particular outcome. Who knows that? Only myself. And in a behavior, as it manifests itself, as we will see, it's there. It was there even in chapter 2. It starts manifesting itself. We'll see it in this chapter also. We've seen it in Asakti Rahit Karma in other chapters also. Okay, we'll keep looking at that. And you are your own enemy.
Yeah.
Okay, please go ahead.
The other person who is wronging you is the external enemy. Also
He also
created-
is created by
created
us.
by us,
Now just
hence
hold
we
just
are-
hold on. So the person who is wronging you, he is your enemy. and therefore he has also, in a sense, been created by us. How has he been created by us?
It comes in the way of whatever we want. Or
Absolutely. What we think, I think, what I wish to achieve, what I wish to do, he comes in, becomes a block. He restrains it. So he becomes your enemy. So he has been created by you, by your own expectations, attachments which have not got fulfilled in that sense.
But suppose someone treats you badly, disrespects you, is rude to you. That has not been created by you. But I guess you have an expectation that people should treat you well in
Absolutely.
that sense.
Absolutely. So why are you getting affected by it? Then there is no issue at all. If he is treating you badly, it is his own karma. He is treating you badly.
Ignore.
What do you have to do with it?
We have to just ignore that.
What do we have to do with it? If we don't respond, react to it, in fact, he'll just quieten down. If you just have a smile on your face as he's screaming, he'll quieten down.
So in behavioral sciences also we are taught two things. One is we can't control what that guy is doing. I can only control my reaction. So I have to have control on myself. I can't change that. Second is if I'm affected by what he, she, or others are doing, then I have handed over my chance of happiness over to them.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. It's the same thing, and it's been said in other words, but essentially that you have made your own enemy.
Yeah.
What will happen as a as a consequence? I will be disturbed in my mind.
So in the
Why is he behaving like this? Why he is taking it out on me? He was supposed to be angry on something else. Okay?
in the practical world also, the best managers do not react to what a person is talking. They understand what is his occurrence and leave
Yeah.
it to him.
Yeah. So in a sense, some of these managers are able to move away from that to make that into the focal point into their own selves, which remains as their focal point. I'm just using very, very simple words, but actually speaking, if you're not based in your own self, and if you're not based in your that ultimate self, you cannot have that mental capacity to be able to hold on or stay in it for a long time. It can be done for a short while by practice. But to stay in it constantly, which is what we endeavor to do, because dhyan, our ultimate realization is through nishtha, gyan nishtha, to be steady in it constantly. So in moments we can be, in certain time periods we can be, certain situations we can be, but not all the time. The same manager who is behaving in such a nice fashion, he comes home and he's all over.
Yeah. Okay.
He takes it out on his family. Okay, normal things which happen, right?
That also happens.
Yeah. Because he's unable to hold it. He is not able to understand in his own depth that this is what it is.
Very true.
Having said you are your own friend and you are your own enemy, then a person with what characteristics is our own friend and who is our own enemy? ठीक है, अब कौन हमारा मित्र है, कौन हमारा दुश्मन है?
You are the one.
यदि इस प्रकार से है तो कौन दुश्मन है और कौन हमारा मित्र है? So we'll read the next shloka.
Okay. He only is the friend of that Jivatma, ignorant Atma, who has himself controlled this collection of organs, and the body superimposed on the Atma, meaning who has controlled his senses.
Yeah.
He who has not controlled the body in the form of Atma, he himself operates as an enemy. Just as another enemy may be harming us, he himself keeps harming himself.
So if you control your senses, then you are your friend. And if you're not able to control your senses, because what will happen with these senses? These senses will take you far and apart and will not allow your mind to settle down. It will not settle down into a peaceful state. So then how can you perform dhyan? If you control your senses, then you are able to. How do you control your? How do these senses get controlled?
Through dhyan, meditation,
More,
Detachment.
We just talked about it.
determination.
Okay, what else? So we just said it in shloka number 3 and 4 that by performing asakti rahit karma, slowly, that the desires start reducing and your focus or following the indriyas, the senses, into all the various directions, into getting attached to objects, into seeing and understanding the external world, those things start reducing. Okay, so the senses start getting under control. They understand that this has got no purpose. Following these senses has got no purpose. And if there is no purpose, then actions are only being done with the purpose of staying connected in this universe in the way we are performing the Vyavaharik Jagat, but not necessarily involved or attached with it. Are you now seeing the thing coming around fully? Of course, all this needs determination, all this needs
Dhyan yoga. That's dhyan yoga.
dhyan yoga is consequence of withdrawal of senses.
Action without expectation
Yeah, of the outcome.
of the
I think this Rahul is sitting in the back. Why don't you come here? We could have your participation. And others also were there.
Rahul will participate wherever he is.
Achha, okay.
Rahul, please come in front. Please.
Is this okay? Any questions? No, we should toss it around in our mind, and not only just now, but even outside. Because as you start practicing Asakti Rahit Karma, you'll realize there are going to be quite a few questions which will crop up. And questions can be brought up, we can understand them, and we can also look at how we can handle them ourselves. But the journey really starts, and you are not following your senses, which are all the time groping with objects which are outside and getting attached to them. And here you are, therefore, starting to move inwards. And a few steps inwards, and you'll find that there is no other journey except that. Okay? There is no possibility of any other journey except that.
So are we also encouraging solitude?
Not said at all. Not said at all. However, it may lead to, and the word solitude has its own nuances. Okay, I think there was some nice little video which went around, no? एकांत और अकेलापन. हाँ, अभी आया था. किसी ने देखा था? आपने देखा? Loneliness and aloneness. Okay. So I'm not using the word solitude because that difference is very important.
understanding the difference,
then you can be alone without necessarily being lonely.
no, I'm not talking about lonely at all.
So you're talking about solitude
Solitude.
of aloneness.
Does that increase or accelerate all this? Does that help initially, initial stages, the solitude?
No,
Going
that is a
depth?
that is a consequence.
That's a consequence. Not the other way around.
I think we should
See, you can try, just like we talked about, that I'll try and sit in dhyan, and then I'll also have dhyan. But there'll be lots of issues around that. Because suppose, let's say, you are alone. Now your mind is going to move into various things, and suddenly you might get trapped in something which you're not aware of. As a person who is quietly in solitude exploring something. But if you have an understanding of who I am, even an iota of an understanding, and you're pursuing a certain type of practices, for example, asakti rahit karma. Well, if it does happen, it is happening. The aloneness. It is not something which is going to cause any harm, because now your mind is. What will you do in that aloneness? Your mind will only gravitate towards something which is happening inside you.
Is the key aloneness as a word or as a state or is it detachment?
You tell me.
see. Sorry, very slight digression. We are talking either. We should not be talking in the physical sense.
Absolutely right.
That's what confuses
Yeah.
us.
Absolutely
We are
right.
talking only internally.
Absolutely right.
Internally, right?
Absolutely
one
right.
question.
But you do need to sit by yourself. I mean, for some time during the day to be able to reflect, to be able to whatever internal practices each one of us is trying. But that time is necessary. I mean,
No, obviously. So those who are into this journey to look inwards will need to, and they do find time. Both. However, if suppose you are not into that journey and you're sitting alone, then what will you be doing?
then the mind will just be wandering here and
Yeah,
there.
then it is basically mischief causing. No, mind is a place which causes mischief.
I mean, let's take a physical situation, two different situations. Supposing one is sitting on one of the benches here in our own complex. There are people moving around and whatever. But I, as an individual, if I'm able to, whether I shut my eyes or I don't shut my eyes, that's my option, privilege, training, whatever. But I'm able to get my mind to focus on what it wants to think about. And in this case, if I want to do dhyan or whatever, can I do it? There may be sounds around me, there may be people around me, but I'm not alone physically. Change the location to your balcony. You're on one of the nice upper floors, no people around, nobody, none of your neighbors can see you, nothing of the sort. You're completely private. But there are sounds outside. There's construction going on. There are early morning, there are birds flitting around, they're quite loud, some of them. They can distract you. Again, it's the mind which has to be able to concentrate inwards and do the dhyan or whatever that you choose to do.
So that aloneness is also, even if you're in the most crowded place,
Traveling in the metro.
you could still be alone
We are senior
in your own
citizens, we
self.
get a seat to sit down.
Yeah.
हम जब भी बात करते थे कि वो साधु चले गए गुफा में, so every साधु had either, जब भी उन्हें तप करना होता था, तपस्या करने के लिए और भंग करने के लिए हमेशा आवाज की जरूरत, वो हमेशा गुफा में क्यों जाते थे, या फिर पहाड़ियों पे क्यों जाते थे, या जंगलों में क्यों जाते थे. तो there was a reason कि वो जाते थे सॉलिट्यूड. अगर हम फिजिकल फॉर्म में भी अगर बोले मन का, तो हम बात कर रहे हैं. अगेन आई एम पॉइंटिंग, आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट बीइंग अलोन और लोनली इन अ क्राउड. I'm going beyond that, but I'm also talking about solitude for meditation, you know, and your own calming cave. Everyone has their own cave. Like घर में भी एक कोना सबका होता है जहाँ पे वो जाके कुछ भी एक छोटी सी जगह पे अपने आप को काम डाउन करते हैं, स्टिलनेस में लाते हैं। तो सॉलिट्यूड से मेरा वो मतलब है कि क्या वो शुरुआत है या वो अंत है या वो
So,
बीच का टाइम।
so in the beginning, we're just starting with understanding how to quieten our mind.
Okay.
Okay, so we start with certain practices. Then we find that quietening that mind happens best when I'm sitting in certain corner of the house. Fine. Then you start realizing that I can sit even in the metro and I can be having a quiet mind. Okay. Now, till the time I have this role to perform action. मेरा कर्तव्य है, ड्यूटी है, मैं इस तरह के वर्ण आश्रम में हूं जहां मेरी ये ड्यूटी बनती है, तब तक मेरे को ये कर्म करना आवश्यक है, इस संसार में रहना आवश्यक है। ठीक है, उसके बाद there is the next step of moving into Vanprastha ashram, which is withdrawal from normal worldly vyavarik actions. Now you can sit at home and you can be in Vanprastha, and you can be going to an ashram and stay in Vanprastha, or you can go into a cave and be a Vanprastha. Okay. However, going into a cave and practicing is only for a sannyasi. And that sannyasi is a person who is already a jnani. Okay, let's understand sannyasi. We've gone through it in chapter 4. He performs actions, but they are not actions. They are akarm. कर्म और अकर्म में हमने अंतर देखा वहां पे। क्यों अकर्म बन जाते हैं? क्योंकि वो ज्ञानी हो चुका है, अब उसकी एक केवल उसके आगे की स्थिति रह गई है, जिसके अंदर he has to now totally be dissolved or be one with the Brahma. He is still a separate entity, okay, as a sannyasi, but he understands, he has got the jnana. And that jnana has to become all the time, and he has to not dissolve that into that oneness of Brahma. That is when he proceeds from into sannyas and moves into leaving this space, going into a cave, or whatever is the medium he finds through his guru, which will help him to realize that final thing. Okay. We cannot leave our actions, we cannot leave our duties. So, whilst living and performing our duties, what can we be? We can only be a sannyasi in the antakaran, which has been mentioned somewhere. Maybe it's coming later, I don't remember now. It has been mentioned, okay? Within yourself, you can understand that I don't need to, there is no purpose, but I am performing because there is a certain duty which I need to have. And therefore, even if a person has a feeling that he is now realized, he is being told, even in chapter 4, that he has to continue to perform actions for the benefit of the society. That is his duty. Okay, in Grahastha ashram also, suppose somebody has realized, he cannot leave that ashram. So he has to continue to perform his duties, and his duties will be more in the nature of welfare of humanity. Are you getting it?
I am.
Let's hear the question again, because there's some questions still remaining.
तो आपको उसके लिए परमिशन आपके पार्टनर की भी लेनी पड़ेगी। अगर आप गृहस्थ आश्रम में गए और आपने डिसाइड किया आपको सन्यासी बनना, तो आपको परमिशन सीख करनी पड़ेगी आपके
आपको
पेरेंट्स से
आप
अपने
डिसाइड
spouse
नहीं
से?
करोगे आपको सन्यासी बनना है।
मैं आई थिंक एवरीवन नोज हु आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट कि उन्होंने जैसे शादी करके डिसाइड किया कि हम जा रहे हैं विदाउट द एंड इट्स अ नेशनल एग्जांपल
No, we have an example of, let's say, Gautam Buddha. Okay, it's a separate story.
more recent times.
Huh. I'm just talking about as powerful as that. Okay. That's a separate thing. Again, it's been said right from birth, people have certain characteristics and they will demonstrate that, and they alone can move out. But otherwise, 99, there's hardly many people who have this sort of possibility. So you, by the Shastras, are not allowed to, permitted to. Okay. Now,
In Grahasthashram.
yeah, we have, like in the first
Certain duties.
line of the Gita itself, there are two types of dharma, pravritti and nivritti rupa. Okay, pravritti is that which is having tendencies of performing action, living in this, the way we are living in this manifestation. And the other one is nivritti rupa, which is right from the beginning, the feeling is there in the person that this does not exist.
So we have
There's
also-
something which is wrong, I need to figure it out. Which is, let's say, many of these cases of Gautam Buddha or Adi Shankaracharya or Ramana Maharishi or many such people, Vivekananda. You can just take names after names. Okay, who have understood right from that early stage that this is not something which I need to sort out. This is not it. And they can't sort of stay at the age of 6, 7, 8, going to the same class, studying in the same school, and not seeing that they are different. All sorts of things will start happening.
If you are a karma yogi, you are also a sannyasi doing the karma yoga.
Absolutely, that's what's been said.
Yeah.
But she is looking at that sannyasi who goes away, leaves home, and moves into a cave, as an example, as an impression she's putting across. And that's all I'm trying to answer. Of course, she's understanding the rest also. But am I right?
But I think if I can answer what I have understood is solitude will facilitate where you want to, and contribute to that. So I think it's the beginning.
So that's why I'm saying that
Right.
solitude is a word which is little tricky.
Tricky.
So it could be.
Means ekam.
So that's why I'm saying, use the word aloneness. Why not?
Yeah. So if you are not attached and you detach yourself and do your action, do not react to what is happening around. That is what a
It's very expanded.
yoga
That's
is.
what I'm
See, Pradeep ji, we are not saying
Yeah, we don't say it.
one thing. We are saying that we are not attached to the outcome,
We are not attached to that.
right? We're not saying that we are not attached to performing the action. Are you seeing the distinction?
Yeah.
I have to relate with you. That is my karma. I cannot be detached from interacting with you. But in my interaction, to have an expectation or a hope is all that I am removing. I see the qualitative difference in the entire thing.
Very good.
Detached from
There's
the
nothing
outcome.
to. Am I getting detached? No,
Only
I am not detached from you.
It's from the outcome.
It is the expectation which I am carrying vis-a-vis you, which I have moved away from.
Yes. Expectation is the killer.
And we all understand that.
Yeah,
Every relationship
we don't practice
is
it.
only getting spoiled because of our own expectations. And we make the other person our enemy.
It's actually quite logical. Very hard to practice.
Yeah,
Very hard to
Very hard
practice.
to practice.
Yeah.
I understand.
To continue to be attached without the expectation. Because see, the question you're saying is how can you continue to be attached?
No, I'm not saying continue to be attached. I'm not using the word
You have to
attached or
continue to
detached.
do your duty
I am
without
not saying
expecting
attached or
outcome.
detached.
You continue to be engaged
Engaged.
With equal commitment.
Yeah.
You know?
with the commitment that the duty requires.
The commitment with the duty required.
Yeah.
That's true.
Out of my kartavya, I am engaged in performing actions vis-a-vis my spouse, vis-a-vis my children, vis-a-vis my parents. But I am not having any expectation that they will come back and look after me,
Yeah.
or he or she, my spouse will do something for me, or my parent will do something. I'm talking about the closest, right?
Yeah.
And a mother, the way actually she nourishes the kid is an example.
It seems so simple, but it's so hard.
No,
to
but it is.
practice.
It
It's
is.
very hard
Not
to
very
practice.
hard.
Mothers have done it.
But generally, it's hard. Universally,
I understand
it's
what
hard.
you're saying. I'm giving you the reason it is not so hard is because if mothers can do it,
Yeah, it's not so hard.
then why shouldn't we all try?
So when you
And it's not mother in the sense of feminine and that time and all that, but that feeling is all I'm talking.
The maternal instinct.
The instinct of caring, nurturance,
when you
and
expect,
whole lot of words with it. Okay, sorry.
so when you no, I'm sorry. When your expectation goes away, then your relationship also improves because expectations make you
Sleep.
poisonous and you speak something for that in that expectation. So your relationship improves. Yeah.
But the question, why do we even have expectations? A is because we are wired that way, hardwired that way, to use a very common term, and we think that everyone thinks like us. That's the main problem.
Yeah.
We think a certain way, and we think that way because we're conditioned to think that way because of our life experiences, because of our personality characteristics, who we are, etc., etc. And we just have this default setting that we think everybody else also thinks the same way.
Yeah. So let's
That's why
understand.
the expectations come up.
तो conditional
So-
है,
so-
just exactly
so-
like this. हम
correct.
validation और outcomes को इस
You
जगह
know,
की लाइब्रेरी के
that's the
बाहर
whole
अगर
thing.
निकालेंगे एकदम ही डिफरेंट है. हम शुरू से ही बोलते हैं क्लास में फर्स्ट आओगे तो साइकिल मिलेगी.
Yeah, we just conditioned.
जॉब में है अप्रेजल के लिए आपको बिठाते हैं. तो अभी जब हम लाइब्रेरी से बाहर निकलेंगे हम फिर वैलिडेशन पर उसमें फंसेंगे. सब फंसेंगे.
We just
आप खुद ही लिख रहे हो किसी की
part of society,
appraisal लिख रहे हो बैठ के सब.
Yeah. So
Outcomes तो बहुत हम बोलते हैं,
so
outcomes हैं.
we are going to stay with that outcome driven world. That's the nature of the world.
Yeah.
However, at some stage will come in our life when we'll understand the futility of that outcome. आज अप्रेजल हुआ नहीं हुआ, मेरे को इंक्रीमेंट देता है नहीं देता है, मैं तो अच्छा काम करता हूँ, कभी स्टेज आती है. ठीक है, it's not that it comes at the age of 30. It'll probably come at the age of 55. Okay, when you care two hoots about that guy and you know he's just playing his little games to please somebody with this much amount and this much increment and this whatever else. Okay, we all see it. Okay, so that will come. That's the natural progression of a life. If I say at the age of 30, walk away from this of becoming number one in your class or in your company, then I'm doing the wrong thing. Because that course has to be followed by the person to realize the futility of that course.
And at that time, we have lived so much of our lives,
No, but as you maybe figure out, for some earlier, some later, that you still realize that this is, this I'm doing it only for the heck of it because I know this has to be done because today it's my job to prove myself to be the best among the lot or whatever. After that, it doesn't matter.
If you relate back to Arjun,
मैं
so Arjun from the very beginning was trained to be the best archer.
Yeah.
The expectation he had, his gurus had, everybody had, that he is the best archer. What did his guru do with Eklavya? When he had to strengthen himself for the battle, he went into transcended meditation to all those special skills, special weapons, all those stuff. All that thing that he did at that point in time was with an objective. He wanted an outcome. All the meditation he did in the forest was for an outcome. But that was at that stage of his life.
In a way, he
Some
was
of these
good.
things will not come at that stage of life, is the way
It has come to him
I,
at a stage when
see it
he
as-
suddenly feels
But
that
that's the privilege, perhaps because we are at the other stage of life. So,
I'm saying he
you
is
have to see.
he's come to a stage where he is now distraught. We've all seen that when we follow expectations, then we get into that situation of what we've seen Arjun go through. It's a normal thing. That's why this Gita becomes so useful, because everybody is that Arjun and everybody has that moho and shok, which we saw in shloka number 11 of chapter 2, hitting them in some nature or other. Rare is a person who may not be experiencing that. Okay, and we suddenly realize that, yeah, all this attachment, all this which I am trying to, I'm a perfectionist. I'm using the word. Okay, Arjun in a sense was. Okay, and I'll do the best, and this is going to, and you will see things are falling apart.
So actually, that was the question in Buddha's mind also, no? Where it started.
Buddha's
Why
mind,
misery?
that's what I'm
Why are
saying.
people unhappy?
All those things, that's why I'm not relating it, but it's very clear that he saw the futility of life very early. So let's not justify things, but I'm just saying that these are examples, and we're not going to justify anything at this moment, because what we have to follow is what is being given by Krishna Bhagwan in a situation in which we live.
So if you go for a sannyas and completely away from the Grihast ashram, I think the peace is not there.
Yeah, it will not be
So
there.
the whole Gita came after the, say, people following Buddhism and all that. They also were not happy.
So what happened in Buddhism, and why Adi Shankaracharya wrote this in 8th century, and we should understand the context, because same thing. As we go forward, we'll see Ramanujacharya, we'll see Guru Gobind Singh, Guru Nanak, and various other such saints. They have tried to focus their attention on that which ails the society or the religion, and tries to bring about a new perspective which can help that religion to survive. Okay, let's look at, for example, Buddhist monasteries were a great center of attraction for all the men. They would say at the age of 20, 25 that they want to go and now practice dhyan in those monasteries, and they would walk away from grihastha ashram. And that was prevalent right from maybe 2nd century or even earlier. I think the monasteries came into existence a little later. And 8th century, he's seeing that the society is getting disrupted. And we read the Siddhartha of Hermann Hesse as well. Okay, and what does he do? That man who's gone into the monastery, his mind is all over the place, because all his attachments, desires, everything are just surfacing. They're proliferating, and he is unable to do anything.
So Buddhism and sannyas, if you see, will disturb the balance of the world.
Yes, so he says this. That's why if you look at Gita, here he says, I created, Bhagwan says, I created, and he says, and all that is being said only to ensure that we stay in the ashram in which we have come. Okay, and he says, I have created these 4 ashrams: Brahmacharya, Grahast, Vanprasth, and Sannyas. Okay, and since I have created them, you are supposed to stay in them and perform your kartavya. If you do your kartavya, karma, then you will remain peaceful. and you will slowly progress into the stages of asakti rahit karma, which is essentially sannyas in action. Okay, and that would lead to a particular time in your own life. But today, those days they used to say 25 years grahastha ashram, 25 years of brahmacharya. So 50 years later, you can go into vanprastha. Okay. Today we are sitting at a stage where maybe at 70 also we aren't able to get out of grahastha ashram. Okay, so I'm just throwing this up because the reality is a little different. But yes, if we understand that there is a vanprastha ashram after grihastha ashram, then at some stage, whether it's at the age of 70 or 75, sometime I'll start saying, oh, I think I should look at this.
Practical use is that if you follow Gita, you are the best performer. Say if at the family end and at your action end also. So you're the best manager. And Govind Ji Dulakia, he's the biggest, say, diamond manufacturer and deals in. So he's putting up a university based on Gita. So a management university and other, say, departments based on Gita.
Good, yeah. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people, a lot of the
Used to
world.
give a lot of talks to corporates.
Yeah.
A person who does actions uh, without, you know, I mean, and when they're saying you do action, but don't be focused on the outcome and the attachment, etc. Will that kind of a person be an antisocial kind of a person, an introvert person?
No. Why should he be?
My key thing is
It's not
there is no
worried about-
disengagement of
he's not looking
activity.
at the outcome
of
he's just
relationship.
doing the action.
So there,
When you do the right action, your focus is only on action and the right action. When your actions are right, you're more focused on action. Then your outcome
will be
2
good.
and 2 will be 4 only, no? Why you're getting distracted that kya hoga, kya hoga, kya hoga?
Yes, you. That's the other way to look at it.
Yeah, it will be 4 only.
But
It
there
will
is
not
a
be 5 or
there
it
is
will
a
not be 3.
but Pradeep ji, there is something different she's asking. My sense is that. Am I right?
If you're working
So
in a
living in
larger
society.
environment, right? I mean, people are looking at the bigger pot and what next, etc., etc. And here you're saying we are. I mean, you won't be focusing on the outcome. You won't be so expressive. How do you align that?
So go deeper into the word. You're saying focused. Look at that word and say, do you have an attachment to the outcome?
Do you have a?
An attachment to that outcome. Look at it. Do you have a craving for the outcome? Okay. Now, as soon as you move into each of these stages, you find that your mind is more distracted by that craving, by attachment, or whatever else was the set of the words which can be there along that path. Now, as soon as you move it away and to say, I'm leaving it as a mild hope, a pink bubble floating there, you see the difference. Now, you've not got rid of it, that little bit of attachment or expectation, but at least you have moved away from significantly. Even in this only. Now, if you start understanding that this also have to let go and you drop it, how does it make a difference? And test it out. And you'll find, actually speaking, the outcomes are more beautiful.
So the energies are concentrated.
Forget about the rest of the house and wives. We'll come to those later on. But for the moment, they happen dramatically beautiful.
Right.
Right?
Because we are doing everything for Krishna.
So we have seen it happen. Okay? And that's how it happens.
So you're doing everything for Krishna.
I'm not so
Whether-
sure on that.
No, we
one.
will use that also. We'll come to that also because that's bhakti part. We are
Yeah.
not moving into
But
it.
if I'm doing kartavya part,
I'm just using
Karma.
so far just the
Krishna
karma
doesn't
part.
enter
Okay,
that picture.
I'm just staying with karma yoga. Bhakti has its own beauty.
Within Karma Yoga, whatever you do can be only for.
I understand.
I don't have now the reason for the result. I'm taking action, or my actions are. I think we had discussed in the earlier chapter somewhere. I don't remember that, but yeah.
So Ishwar Arpan Karma. Okay, so
Ishwar
we'll
Arpan.
get into that in greater depth. Just as we are finding it difficult to understand and apply asakti rahit karma, applying bhakti also is not easy. Okay, so each one will have a mix of things for us. Okay, but he is saying asakti rahit karma is as good as sannyas. Okay, and there is something to be explored by you, understood by you, and we need to figure it out for ourselves. Okay, antarang sannyas. Sorry,
This withdrawal of senses is also very difficult.
Very
to understand because we just cannot stop seeing, hearing, liking, disliking, whatever. I mean,
And it means different to each one. अगर सबसे अलग-अलग पूछेंगे तो वो withdrawal
there is no problem.
Hmm.
There is no problem as long as, and in Gita also we use 10 different words. Okay, just for example, if I'm using the word Atma, there is Brahma, there is super consciousness, there is soul. We'll use all sorts of words. Why? Because each one will find that particular sweet spot with that word, which sort of makes the person change, understand, listen, realize for ourselves.
even this connection between asakti, red karma, withdrawal of senses, it's very difficult to understand how it's converging or.
That's the only way it is
One
happening. If you just start using logic, and we try to do that exercise in chapter 2, I've drawn a diagram
Yes.
how the how anger strikes us, how we become angry. Dhyayate Vijnana Punsaha Sang Sangasteshu Apijayate. I think shloka number 62 or something.
Can you just explain that?
So what it says is that when we are seeing through our senses any object, we tend to develop a certain attachment by constantly looking at it, by constantly engaging with it. And that sangasteshu, that leads to the birth of um, attachment, which leads to the aspect of growth, anger, because something which does not get fulfilled leads to anger, and that anger leads to we losing our mind,
It's not just expectation, but a reaction.
which is a very simple one.
Yeah.
This is that same thing which we've read in 62 is now being understood and explored here. That chart which I had drawn then, which is at the core to our entire process of building desires, because desires are the root of our attachments, expectations, whatever it is, rag. Okay. How does that come about? Okay, that's the question you're asking. And if you can catch hold of that, which is being attributed to our senses, and this man and our senses getting constantly engaged with the memories of the past, okay, and we develop a new world for ourselves constantly. ये अच्छा है, ये बुरा है, ये सही है, ये गलत है.
So are we all erring in terms of parentage? Because from childhood we are teaching the young ones, this is right, this is wrong.
Yep.
Rahul,
This, don't
you have just said that Arjun was trained like that.
Yeah.
So there's no problem.
So I'm saying no, but I'm saying that we have been pushed onto a situation, and now we have to unlearn whatever we have learned in the last 6 to 7
No.
decades.
Not at all. The thing is that Arjun or each of us have come into this world to contribute, to do something. And realizing that at an early stage itself is very important, and pursuing that path is very important for each of these individuals to be able to express and realize their potentials as they have come into existence.
Fair enough.
Right?
Just to explore this a little bit. Supposing we had a situation in which Arjun was provided all the same skills, but without any attachments and with full control of his senses, right from babyhood. Is
So,
it viable? Is it
yeah,
possible?
so no, not possible. Then he would have been Vashisht, or he would have been Parshuram.
Parshuram,
Gita,
Yeah, so
Gita
we had-
was not required.
Huh.
Krishna would
So-
have not have given that.
Yeah,
Could have been
not
Gita,
given the
he-
could have been Gita 2.0.
No, he would have
Then
been
he would have
Parshuram.
understood that yes, I have to take action.
Gita
That would have.
2.0.
Yeah.
I'm saying so he's Parshuram, and Parshuram is not somebody we can all say that we can come into existence like Parshuram. That's all. So our kids also are there. They have to be
Wasn't he
given.
one of the 10.
He is considered subsequently, but I'm saying that kids also have come into this world to fulfill a certain opportunity, which an objective which they have set for themselves, and we are only facilitators.
Then extending that logic, those same kids have come with an end objective of either getting realized or not.
Well, there are
If it is written before, then it is written.
no, it is not, because we then choose our destinies after that.
We are just saying that we were born for a destiny.
You're born,
We can't have both.
you're born into a particular thing through destiny, but after that, your own actions and nurturance which you are giving is all going to help.
It will take many lifetimes. I mean, that's what we have heard, isn't it?
That is for some.
That's because we are every time we are born, we are again pushed into the wrong side of things with attachments and without control of our senses. That's what happens every time we are reborn.
Because
And
of,
therefore-
because of the what we did in the previous birth.
What we did in the previous birth was because from birth we were trained to do that.